So welcome to Bunny's Designs. This is a live show with live peoples all having a natter in chat. It's recorded for Ustream.tv and also in YouTube for people to watch at their leisure. I'm working in Magical Dawn, which is my first page. I've had it a few weeks. So I've decided with these books that I'm going to start at the beginning and go page to page to page. Because with other books I've kind of opened them up and gone, oh yes I like doing that one, and oh yes I like that one, and I've missed lots and lots of things and then bought another colour book and not gone back to it. So I think in future what I'm trying to do is to start at the beginning page, which is going to be the practice, and then it doesn't matter what comes next, I'm making myself colour that instead of being fanciful. And it doesn't matter what I colour them in, I can use different water mediums, but I am trying to pick and actually colour them in order. And I'm finding it a little bit difficult at the moment because I want to colour my colour books in that I'm drawing. So it's really difficult to concentrate on something else, but we'll have a go. So I'll zoom in. I'm going to be using my Derwent inktense pencils, but I'm also using, which is a really good guide. So although the end of the pencil looks like this, if we look at number 750, it should give us this tone here. So we've got dark and light and everything in between. So there's about 10 shades there, and I thought that would be wonderful for these crystals growing here. So I'll zoom in and then we can have a look. If I can just, now hopefully it's kept. And I do find it a bit easier to move the book rather than moving oops, I don't know. I just find it easier to move the book than the camera, and that just might make me out to be a bit of a liar. Right, so I've scratched a bit, so where it's going to be darker there. Now in theory it would be the other way around, but because that's where the lines are, and when I do this normally I will colour one and then I'll go somewhere else and I'll colour another one. This is a different way of working, so I've got to think of lights and darks. So I'm going to put a little bit more on this shadow side. So the idea is this is the dark, so the light's coming from this way now. Now these aren't quite as creamy as the Neos, but they are still very vibrant. So that means that when I activate this with a brush, that's going to be very dark. So I'm going to put a little bit on the next one, just a little bit. And remember, with really good quality water-based pens and pencils, you get a lot of pigment and a little bit of binder. And I'm not going to put any more on there, because if I go down this one it's going to be very dark. I can then go back up to here and it'll be a little bit lighter. And remember, I do not like wasting colour, so that when you've filled a couple of these there's going to be a lot of colour on your brush. So I'll probably do the little beads. I think I'm going to do the beads, the purple as well, because there will be a lot of colour. And then when it fades I'll go to a different section and do it that way. And then the lightest one is going to be this top one, this side here. So you don't need to put any more colour on that. That would be fine, unless you wanted it a different colour, and then that would be fine. So that's, to me, I've done now. Even if I've missed one down here, I've missed this one, there will be some colour on my paintbrush when I activate this, and I will be doing that in part 2 with a Derwent number 1 water brush, a baby wipe, and a little tiny brush that you get in a watercolour set, and this one happens to be Winsor & Newton, and it's really good for tiny spaces, and it will be perfect. It's very good for pastels for setting, but it's perfect for this. So the next is the little jar behind. Oh, we've got this one here. Oh, I think I might do this one. There's a jar, and again, you know, if the light's coming this way, this is going to be darker and this is going to be highlight. So I normally have my pencils and I flip when I'm looking for colours, so that's the sound you can see. Now these are all sitting in a Derwent sleeve for the Derwent art bag, and they normally live in there, but when I'm streaming live I take them out and I can flip them over, and then when I want to go into the lounge to colour or in the garden, they go back into the bag and the whole bag flips open, but it's just too big for my desk. There's an apple green that looks quite nice, but I like hooker's green. It's a real nice green, and again I might not know what colour to use, so very quickly I'll zoom out a bit and we look at the greens. So I've got olives, and because I've got the full set of 72, these are quite nice colours. The teals and the turquoises, these are really nice colours for bottles. So actually I'm going to put hooker's green back, because hooker's green is a traditional green, this one a bright bottle green. So I've just decided by using this, it's given me the better idea of using number 1300 is there's a mallard green, but I think I like this one, so this is teal green. So I need to go to teal green, and my greens are on the other side to teal greens. So I've got 113 teal green. Now some of the numbers might be different because I've got 2 different sets. I had a set of 30 and then I've got the others, so mine have made up of mixtures of a lot of different years, and even now I think these are a different colour, so these are quite old as well. So that one, and I do like this one, which is green aquamarine. And green aquamarine is somewhere else now. 1220. That's 1320. And they're so old. Oh, that's dark. That's dark aquamarine, that one. So I like the one 112, I think. I've got green aquamarine. That's, I found it. I think it's time to put the numbers round because they're wearing off. You can't see the numbers, so I think I need to put the numbers on so that I can, because the pencils are certainly going to outlive that. So I've got my 2 greens for my bottles, I think. So I can zoom out again. Oh, sorry, zoom in again. So there was the teal, I think that would be the nice teal, so I'm going to use this green. So again, I'm just going to scratch a little bit of colour. Now, just like it's a pencil, and because I don't have any sharp points, I have got some facets, as I call them, little flat areas. So if you find one of those, you don't get, you see, look, you don't get any pencil lines. And that's because this was actually sharpened with a thing, but it's because I don't always sharpen them. So you don't get any pencil lines, and you just very carefully slide that across. Now if you wanted to, you could, in fact we'll do that as an experiment, because I haven't done it with inktense pencils before. So we'll get the white and we'll scratch a little bit of white on here. And then on the top. And then just panicked for a moment that it wasn't the right green, and then we'll just take that very, 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 very lightly over the white, and hopefully that was going to give us really nice highlight. Now trust me how vibrant these are, that by the time you've swished all this colour here, that white is going to need all its strength. So we don't need to put any colour down there. And the same with here, put a bit of colour on the top. And remember, we can manipulate it with the brush. So we want more at this side because the light's coming from that side, we've decided, and maybe a shadow there. And then we want just a little bit here. So now we've got to do the top. So the top is going to match. So we want full colour at the bottom. And at that side. But then we want a little bit of colour here. And I'm going to leave that because by the time you've done these three here, you'll have enough to do these three, and then you can clean the brush and do these four, and then you can do the next ones and the top, and it will get paler. And I think there would be even enough to scratch a bit of colour and just have a highlight going that way. And I'm not going to put any more colour on there because, again, like the Neos, like when I did it with the other one, it got a little bit too much colour on, and I don't want to make that mistake. So I think this one again is going to be teal, so I'll pop this one here, and again the light's at that side, and it would be brilliant if I was right-handed, but again this is what annoys me about these pages. So if I ever get a chance to bring out my own colour book, it will be on a spiral bound, and then you can get into the pages to colour them, because that's annoying, and I'm not very good right-handed. So a little bit of colour. Now again, because I've seen this green and I know what it can do, oops, sorry, I'll just get the colour. So this one is Mallard. I think, is it Mallard? No, teal green, this one. I know that I can have these gorgeous colours here, and I can have that vivid colour there. So in theory, I don't want to go past halfway, and then that's going to give me... Now I do have a few little pencil lines on there, because I couldn't get a nice thing going on there. But again, because inktense is so well pigmented, it's not going to really make a difference. Now that's probably a bit better. And I'm not pressing on because you don't need to, because we want the light to go through this bottle. And again, no pencil lines. The Neos melt, the inktense melt nearly as good, but you've got different colours with the inktense, and remember it's ink based. It's not technically a watercolour, it just behaves like a watercolour when you wet it. But the Neo colours, the art bars, all the other water-based crayons and pencils, apart from the inktense and the ink blocks, they will be reconstituted like an ordinary watercolour. But these won't. These won't. Once these are set, you can't manoeuvre them about. So I kind of like the idea that I've got kind of a light thing there. So I might go 3/4 maybe, because it is the last one. And again, little circular motions, because there's no hard lines. Now, if you really wanted to, you could do reflections of the crystals in the backgrounds of all the others if you really wanted to. But I'm not doing photorealism, so I won't be doing that. But yeah, you could do if you wanted to. And since I've got this blue one out, and I don't have a colour swatch for this blue one, so it's going to be... this is what it is. Oh, in fact, I could do a colour swatch. So, how I do a colour swatch. A decent amount on here. And then, oh no, Alfie. Oh. Sorry about that. Yes, heard the little bell and the little dance. We know what the little dance means, don't we? Sorry about that. So it's gone. Oh, never work with animals and children. So we've got dark, and then we've got pale. And he's put me right off what I was doing. So actually that's quite a nice blue, so I think we'll have blue ribbon. I think that's going to be nice. Because Suzanne, you weren't watching the dog, Suzanne. Is Suzanne still with us? He's a naughty boy. So again, I'm just going to put a bit of this, and if I put it behind, oops, sorry, and by the time you've gone around here, you'll have enough to do this naturally as a highlight. And so I think these could be kind of pinks and things, so we're going to keep this one the same. I'm working with inktense pencils, but I'm not colouring in with them at the moment. I'm putting the colour on, and so I'm just scratching the colour on so that I can colour them at a later date. So if I was going on a train, or I was going to hospital and I wanted to do a little bit of colouring, but I didn't want to take the pencils with me, you can scratch the colour in and leave it dry and just put a little bit of a paper in front of them. I think we'll have all the ribbons the same colour. And as I say, by the time because these are inktense, they are so vibrant, by the time you've activated this colour, you will have enough to go around, because it will do that. And apologies for the... So I've just got this little bit up here. My thumbs are not working particularly well today. So I'll manipulate that with the brush, and then I'll drag it down to give me a natural highlight. And again, it's a very blunt pencil. You wouldn't say that was a sharp pencil, but there are some sharp facets on it. So I know to turn it to just get that little bit of colour. And so we've got all the ribbon done. And again, this one, it will be a highlight, so I'm not putting any colour on it. And there seems to be a crystal on its own just here. So I will see. It was the deep violet, wasn't it? Yeah, it was the deep violet. Oh, no, it was a dark purple. I think it was dark purple. And again, just going to put a little bit on there. Right, and so we need another bottle colour. I think there is a bottle green, but I don't know which one that's in. Oh, beach green is quite nice. It says rainbow light. Do I want to do it rainbow colours? Oh, would I like to do it? So many really pretty colours in this inktense, and of course they all lend themselves to pretty bottles. We could have a pinky one, I suppose. We could have a really pretty, there's a mauve, that's really pretty. Or maybe that's more of an amethyst colour. but we want to pinky things up a bit, I think. So we've got red violet. Red violet is quite nice. So let's find red violet. Thistle's also a really nice one. I think I'll do thistle. I do like thistle. It's one of my favourites. So again, I'm just gonna very carefully, just in little circular movements. Sorry. I'm getting a bit like Hilda Baker. I'm getting her words mixed up. Instead of saying, "What are you insinuating?" she used to say, "What are you incinerating?" And I'm getting like her, but she used to do it as a comedy act. Very funny lady, bless her. She made a pop video in the 80s. I think it was the 80s. It could be the 70s, but I think it's the 80s when Grease came out. And of course she was dressed as Olivia Newton-John. Very funny. If you can see that on YouTube, it's very funny. A little bit of colour here. The only difference about doing this is you can't actually see what you're doing at the time, so you're kind of working a bit blind. You've got a good idea from here, the colours, but until you actually manipulate them and do them, you don't really know what's going to happen. So there is a slight disadvantage to that, I have to say. And seeing as I found iris blue, I better use it, so I'm going to use it on here, I think. So again, I'm going to do the bottom run. Oops, sorry. And do the bottom run here. So that when I've activated that, I'm going to have a paler version of it to go down here. And I'm going to make that go up there. And this is all I do when I manipulate these colours. I've got a bit of shadow in there, look, so got some shadow. And then the water brush will give me my highlight. And this time I want the bottom one. And then we need a sand colour. So we've got a Sicilian yellow. What's that one? There's a burnt orange. Oh, burnt orange might look quite nice. So again, you don't need very much. And you want to leave that white highlight alone. And we've got a little heart there. So we've got the beads. I think the beads could possibly be pink. I think I'm going to do them pink. I think I'm going to do them crimson. I think I like the crimson one. poppy red. Poppy red's not refined. Deep rose. Oh, deep rose is quite pretty. That's that one. Red violet. No, not red violet. I like crimson, I think. It's a dark cherry colour. So I'm going to put the tiniest amount on the inside. And it is a tiny amount. So this one I will be doing with that little tiny brush because it's a small space. And I just want the tiniest amount on the edge there. All the way around. And then there are some on the top of this one here. But it is a very strong colour. And we've also got the rest of the labels to do. That seems to be a bit of a and again, tiniest bit because I want to create a highlight. I think just a little bit around there. So I don't sharpen my pencils unless it's absolutely necessary because the wood's there to protect the colour and it doesn't really need moving. If I should put this pink and green. Sometimes just two colours is quite nice. Don't know what colour to do that one next. I need the green again because I've forgotten to do this bit here. I think we'll make that's clear. And could have a tangerine colour. Oh, these look very pale now, but oops, they will be they will be very vibrant when they're wet. And cadmium yellow, I think we'll have a bit of cadmium yellow in that one. And just that little bit of colour is going to be enough, I think. So everything's got colour there. And just scratch a bit of colour in here. So as I say, you could do this in a child's book or teenagers if you didn't still want them to be playing with your colours, and then they can feel just as grown up. Now then, you'd obviously have to do the yellow first, because that yellow needs to stand out. So thanks guys for stopping by. Hope everybody's alright. It's been a bit of a funny old day today. I wonder if it's the weather. It's definitely the weather, I think. We need some bright colours at the top. Might leave the stars white. We've got these kind of swirls. They could possibly be, I think they could be oranges and yellows. Have a quick flick through the book. Oh yeah, we've got some yellows. We've got yellows and we've got oranges, and we've got a poppy red. There's a scarlet pink. We have like a scarlet pink and poppy red. So there's some really nice colours here. And it's like the rule of three. They're going to go well together. So we'll start with the yellow. Start with a yellow. We could do yellow. Should we do? This is poppy red, I think. Oopsie. And again, if you find a flat space, that's the one to use, because we don't have any harsh lines. I mean, I've never had any problems with harsh lines, but I know some people do. So again, another good example not to sharpen your pencils, because you've got a flat facet. So that one goes into there and disappears. I'm sorry about my hands in the way. They're just not playing nice today. So I've got a white Posca pen that I found. I found all lots of white markers and white pens. So I don't have to worry about going over dots and things. So this one is Tangerine 103. Now Tangerine I think is still in there. And remember, this is a practice. This page belongs to practice page, so now you can have a real good practice with colour. Now I used to do it on a photocopy paper, but seeing as this book belongs to page, it's not going to bother me too much. Oops, sorry, I'm carrying it round. I think the trick is not to dig in too much. I think and I think that one's there, that one must be that one. So has anybody got any questions? Oh, thank you. Thank you. Well, I like the rule of three. The rule of three is kind of simple, and it's just using colours that are next to each other. So yellow, orange, and red, or you've got red, a reddy orange. A red and a kind of a purple colour. I don't know if that's going to be red or orange. Okay, I might do orange on that one. Oops, orange. So it's always there's the rule of three, which always works really well. So and I learnt that with the dragon. So you've got greens, you've got a yellow, but you could have a green and a blue, but then you can split those up to what tone of yellow. So you want a cold yellow and a bright green, and then you can really look at your tertiary colours, which are the colours in between. And it works really well. And the other thing is, it hurts my hands to use pencils, so and you don't need it with these. And the idea is you're blending with a brush. You're blending with a water brush. so you don't need to go over things with lots of different colours, because I find that very painful. So I'm going to go back in there with some stickles. I think I found some stickles. Again, it's always good to have a clear out. Now these will be really vibrant, so we don't have to worry about it being pale. Now I don't know where the rule of 3 came from, but it was about when I was at college the first time, which was in the 80s, 79 to early 80s, we used the rule of 3. So again, that was in our colour theory, and that's when we were taught never to use black. Make our own blacks, and I really like that. I really enjoy making blacks, because you have warm blacks and cold blacks, so I quite enjoy that. It's quite good. I think that one can be red. I mean, this might look totally hideous when I finished it. No, I haven't used 3 colours. I've used, but I'll be using watercolours to kind of manipulate them. So if I pan out, I don't know how long I've been. It's quite a fast way to work, is this. So what I'm doing is scratching the colour, but from that green I will probably get about 6 shades out, 6 tones, whereas somebody will have to use 6 different colours. So they would use 6 tones of my one green, but that's why it's watercolouring. It's watercolouring with a damp brush in a watercolour way, so I get watercolour effects, but I'm using just a damp brush. And that means you don't use a lot of water on your pages. Now you can use a rigger. A rigger's probably better. Now, but because I'm poorly, I can't use a rigger at the moment. I've got to. So the rule of 3 is, but I'm using different reds. I'm not using the same reds. I've got a pinky red, and I've got a poppy red, and I've got an orange and a yellow. So you're using 3 colours that are next to each other on the colour wheel. And I'd forgotten about the rule of 3 until I did the dragon. Which I keep missing the dragon every time I go that way. Don't know where the dragon is now. Oh, well, that one's the rule of 3. So I've got a pinky red, an orangey red, and a yellow, but I've got a warm yellow. I haven't got a cold yellow. I've got a warm yellow, and then I've got an orange, and I've got a red. On this one, I've got a cold yellow, I've got a warm yellow, and I've got an orange. And then on the middle one, which I have no idea where it is, it should be in the middle page. Should it not be in the middle? This one I've got a warm yellow, a red, and then I've got an orangey red to a red. Actually, I should know they're inktense pencils. They're my Derwent inktense, so they're going to be really vibrant when they're done. Because I'm not doing what I did down here. These are going to be full on bright colours. But again, you know, this is a practice page. This is where you can make all your mistakes. This is where you get the water right, you get your brush right, and you get your colour. So I'm just doing this really quickly so you can see how the colours applied. I'm just not getting any lines though, that's all. I'm making sure that I'm not having any harsh lines. And I'm not going over the stems, the stars, sorry. Oh, I can't talk today, sorry. So I've got a pinky red, and I've got a red, I've got an orange, and I've got a yellow. And my pencils are really blunt, so I don't have any sharp edges. So normally it takes about an hour for a page. Depends how complicated it is, but it's about an hour to scratch the colour. So if you wanted to do, and again I've got this silly thing down there, so, but I'm not going to bother in there too much because there will be some colour. And this is when my hand gets tired. It's just always easier to turn the page. So all I'm doing is scratching colour. There's no water in this because this is designed to do this. Ready for going away. I'm going to the doctor's. So you're just taking a water brush with you. And you don't need to take your pencils for whatever reason. Either they're going to melt or you wouldn't want to take them on a sandy beach. Your Neos, you can do this with the Neos as well because the Neos will melt. See, I went over that. I thought I would. No, sorry, Sue. No, it isn't. No, it's just for this. This has got one colour, and then the water brush is going to manipulate it to a watercolour effect. These are going to have a watercolour effect. I did it with the Hydrus, didn't I think, in this one. This is what I did last week. This was the Neos, just scratching a little bit of colour and then manipulating it with the brush. So I did that and then shut it up, and then the following day. But they were very vibrant, so I didn't get too much of a watercolour effect. Just maybe on the tail. You get a lovely watercolour effect on the tail. But this was a watercolour effect as well. But this is a different way of working. This is another way to work. If you don't want to take the things with you, you scratch the colour at home. And I might do a dark background, I think, actually. So you scratch the colour at home, and then you put a piece of paper. So say you finished all this. Now, it's not so much bothered with the pastels, but I would still do it. You could fill the whole book like this. Take the book with you, a water brush and a little tiny brush and a baby wipe. And that's all you need. You don't need any pencils, you don't need any colours, you don't need anything else, because all your colour has been put on the page. So you do have to think a little bit about it, because you might want to think, well, again, this is a practice page. This might not work out. I might have to put colour all the way. And I've missed a bit down here, look. So if you get where you're away and these are very vibrant, but if you do miss a bit, then you'll have to wait till you come home to kind of finish it off, or if it's not as bright as you wanted. I'm quite tempted to make this very dark, and I don't normally do that, but I am tempted. If I have there's some nice greys in this one. There's a charcoal grey, Chinese ink, a neutral grey, an Indian ink. There's a dark chocolate, which is a really dark one, Payne's grey, an Indian ink black. And then there's the outliner. So there's some really nice deep colours there. Sepia is always a nice dark as well. Willow's a dark, nice wooden one. I'm actually looking for the blue. Deep indigo. I think that's going to be quite dark. So let me have a look on here. And this is where you can do it. Now if you do it from the pencil, it's going to take a blooming long time. Deep indigo is there. So that's almost like a midnight colour. That's really nice. So I think I might have to sharpen that one. I kind of like the idea that that's going to be a midnight one. And I sharpen mine with a scalpel blade and a Derwent sharpening guard. So you put the pencil in and you push it up to the top, up to that guide. And then you take your scalpel blade or your Stanley knife or whatever you use, and you're slicing sideways. So thinking about butter curls. Now I do mine slightly different because I kind of come up here a bit. And I have control of my thumb, but if it did slip, it's going to go over there. It's not going anywhere near me. For goodness sake, don't do this. But this sharpening guard's really good, because even if you slip, it's stopping you. And I take off the wood, and I don't sharpen the colour. And I do this for every single pencil, doesn't matter what it is. Unless I'm doing a fine pencil drawing, which I don't do anymore. And you use the same technique. So I just loosen the wood and then I slide it from the strip of colour. Because I've paid for this colour. I'm a tight Yorkshire lass. This is my colour. I don't want it to go in the bin. It's not going in the bin. But I'll show you a neat trick. If you want points to your pencils, you will never get a better one than using this method. And that's why you take off more wood than any pencil sharpener can. Any water-based products, you then slice this and turn the pencil, and you keep going, and eventually you'll end up with a point, and you'll end up with a very long point. You know, some guys do it from down here, a very long tapered point. But I've no need. I've got a point there. I have a sharp point there. I have 5 sharp points. I don't need to do that. So all I'm throwing away is wood. The first thing you do before you pick up your pencil is you put the scalpel blade back with your hand away and push it down. Never hold it and push it down because it can slip. And then get rid of this, which has to go over there. So if I wanted a sharp, fine line, that's not so bad. That's not so bad. There's some really fine lines there. So you don't need to point it to get a fine line. That's what I was doing. So in order to keep this paper flat, and in order to get some kind of nice dark background, so our little stars are going to be shiny, and I don't normally do this. This is one of my favourite colours, indigo. It's really kind of a midnight black. So I'm using one of those facets. Now I'm not pressing on hard, and I'm going to use that paper so that you don't go over. Oops, my hand's getting tired now, and I've got some dark on there. Yes, Kmart, I get the shading from the water brush, but this won't be shaded because I've coloured it a bit more intense. But all these will have a highlight, a watercolour highlight. So you have a watercolour effect, and I invented it and I called it watercolouring. And watercolouring is working on ordinary paper with a tablespoon of water, and your pages stay flat. And all you've been doing is manipulating small areas, and that means your paper doesn't buckle, or doesn't always buckle. I've sometimes got carried away and made a mistake. And the same with backgrounds. The reason I don't normally do backgrounds is it's a big space, and this particular method doesn't work. But this method does work. But watercolouring is always difficult on a big space. But you can do it, and I did it on the fox in Imagimorphia. And again, you don't want any harsh lines, so you want a smooth facet. and that then will allow you to not have any harsh lines. You've got harsh lines you're pressing on too tight, or you've got a point, and there's no reason to have a point because you're just wasting good paint. That's why these are expensive. It's the pigment. So there's no point putting it down the drain once you've bought it. I want every scrap of colour from any of my products to be on my page and not down the sink or in the bin, because I am that tight Yorkshire lass. So I'll zoom in a second. Not necessarily, Sue, it depends. If you were doing, it can be for anything, but if you were doing an apple, you can see lots of different colours in that apple. But if it was a red apple, you would have a highlight of a lighter colour, and you'll have a low light. So you could have the a pinky, if it's a pinky red, if it's an alizarin crimson apple, a pinky red apple, you would have a pink highlight, and then you would have the alizarin crimson, and then you would have a purple shadow underneath. That's the rule of 3. If it was an orangey red apple, you'd got a cadmium red, then you'd want an orangey kind of orange highlight, and then you would want a browner, because it's on the orange side, it's not on the reddy pink side. It all depends about your colour. I don't normally go into about the rule of 3, but you want to use them next to each other on the colour wheel. So if you had a purple pink, it wouldn't be near orange. Now you could use it with orange if you're using it on a bigger scale. You were jumping from red to orange to yellow, but that red probably would be better being an orange red. So you've got orange, red, orange and yellow, and it's a warm yellow. The cold yellow would go with a green and a blue because they're on the colour wheel. So have a look at the colour wheels, and you can have a look at that, and Google rule of 3. You can use it for everything, but if you used it, I didn't want to use it for this way of working. It's just I've kind of automatically changed how I'm colouring in. This is going to be really pale, and the watercolour effect, and this is going to be really vivid and bright. So I don't know what it's going to look like, because as I say, normally you colour a bit and you activate it, and so then you know what colour you want to go next to it. So you're working a bit blind this way, but the advantage of this is you could colour all this, the whole book, in all your water-based products, whether it's a crayon or a pencil, and then you can activate it with just a brush, and you can leave all the water-based products at home and just take the brush and the book. So that's the only reason I'm doing this. It's not a way to work really if you are going to be colouring it straight away. This is just a technique that I thought about a couple of weeks ago, that and I said the gentleman years and years ago did it, and I didn't think about it for books until about a week ago, so I've only had 40 years to think about it. So it's taken me 40 years to come up with this. I've always been a bit slow. Because basically all you're doing is making coloured squares, but you're just putting the right amount of colour on. But you can some guys colour, there's one guy that colours with a limited palette, but he was very clever how he chose his limited palettes, because you can get some really nice colours with orange. So again, I'm just doing this, and I said I've not done this before. It's worked on other things, but not to this scale, if that makes any sense. We did it on here. There is a video I did last week. And I find my thermal here. This is with the Neocolor 2s. So I thought if you can do it with Neocolor 2s, you can do it with inktense, and you could do it with watercolors. So this one was done last week. Scratched all the color, and then shut the book with a piece of paper between it, and then I could have gone away to hospital with just my little water brush. And you sit with the water brush and you manipulate the colour. You activate it and then you manipulate it. So that's with the Neos, and so I thought I'd try it with the inktense pencils. But it should in theory work for everything. And the beauty of this is, as I'm activating this, I'm going to have dark areas and light areas. So it's going to look kind of really different. Am I going over this? Yes, I am. I'm going over this, the white dots, but not over the stars. Now I've got a really nice, like you do with a crayon, you get a flat edge. So it doesn't matter how much I do this now, I am not going to get a line. And I'm getting almost an even coat, which again is something I don't normally do. But now another one is a Blue Lagoon, is another one that's a nice one for a background. So I've started to do a few backgrounds because some pages they need a background. And again, this was a practice. I think I've dropped off my facet there. That's better. But I do want to keep the whites white if I can. So in part 2 of this, I will be activating the colour, and then you can see how you can manipulate it. But it should take about an hour, maybe an hour and a half, depending on how complicated it is, depending on how much detail you want to put into it. So I hope that wasn't as clear as mud. And there is just the lightest of pressure on here as well. So if you've got bad hands, you can just about do this. Whereas if you were putting the colour on any other way, you'd find it probably a bit more difficult. I'll look up in a second to see if anybody's got any questions. So thanks for joining me, guys. Hope everybody's okay. It's been a long day and it's getting dusk here in the UK. I think it's been a bit of a miserable day. And Alfie was a good boy up until the last few minutes. And I'm really cross because I watched him like a hawk. Every time he moved, I was there. And then hubby comes home and it's, oh dear. But I could hear him do the rain dance. That's why he has his bell on, because he has a very large bell around his neck. So we know where he is. And when it tinkles and stops and tinkles and stops and tinkles and stops, we know he's doing his rain dance. but he's not praying for rain. And it sometimes takes between 10 and 15 minutes to do his rain dance. And then he's in the doghouse. But unfortunately, you have to be on his case all the time. It's like having a toddler. You turn your back, and there's a pile. But if we didn't have him... Oh, that's good, Sue. Yes, I always keep thinking I want to go abroad and where it's dry weather, and then you think, yes, but everybody's got something. We've got very boring weather, but we don't have anything else that comes with it. So if I zoom in, you can see the strokes I'm doing, and then it's quite smooth. And again, I've made this little flat facet there. And if you can get back into that one, you can't possibly get any sharp edges and pencil strokes because it's all soft. Now what I could have done is left a bit of a space like we did here to get highlights and lowlights, but I think I want this light to be a midnight night, so I want it kind of really dark, and then the stars are going to shine, and the fireworks, I think they are, whatever they're supposed to be, will kind of glow out a bit much more. But I say I don't normally work like this, and I certainly don't do backgrounds. But this is a different way of working. This is completely different than I normally do. This is designed so you can go out and leave the pencils at home, and you can either do one page or you can do all the pages. Brilliant for hospital, because a hospital you get very bored and you can be there all day. I do have a bit of a pencil line because I've moved off that facet thing there, didn't I? Yeah. I'm going to go over these. And again, we've got that silly edge there. So you could go darker around each individual thing if you wanted. Are you laughing at Alfie and his rain dance? That's what the bell's there for. So if you hear the bell tinkling, you know what he's doing. But that's why we've got him. We've only got him because he was only thrown at us because he has problems. And you heard my husband take them out. They've all been out. And the door was open, but he just has to give you a present. And unfortunately, it's not one that I really want, but hey ho. If you're new to us here at Bunny's Designs, you know we rescue oddities. I don't think we've got Suzanne today, have we? Suzanne is Alfie's stepmom. Or second mum. yeah, Alfie's not all there, shall we say. He's a special puppy. He's a special puppy. Yeah, you heard the bell. Yeah, you knew what he was doing, even though I shouted at him. Too late. That's why I like to know where he is, because if he's under my feet, he's not ringing his bell. Right, so I'll pan out, and you can see I've got this bit to do actually, but let's have a look. Oopsie, wrong one. Oh, hi Auntie Suze, yes. You've changed your name, and that's what's confused me. Doesn't take much to confuse me. I'm not quite as bad as Alfie, but... So what we've got now is that really nice... Now that looks like it's just a blue, but it's that colour. So when it gets wet, it's going to do that. So I think what I might do, I might actually think about I might do this. So you could sit and watch TV, and you've got to think a little bit about the colour, because obviously once it's down, and you can't rectify it till you come home and you take your pencils out again. But most of the time, oopsie, I'm off that facet. Most of the time, just thinking about your colour. But that's why I've done this as a colour practice. This is a practice. This is a practice, so it means, and I've just realised I didn't get a chance to do my Christmas colour book either. So last year I had the Joanna Basford's Christmas book. Ooh, thumbs going. And if you kind of stay in the same direction, it shouldn't be too bad. But remember, this is going to melt. It doesn't melt quite as easily as the Neos, but it's still very, very, very good at watercolour. But technically it's ink based, it's not water. So the inktense pencils are not much good unless you put a gesso down for Bible journaling, Bible pages, because they go through and they show through. Now, watercolour pencils you can use on a Bible page because it will show through, but it won't go through. Now, you can see where I've scratched because I'm rushing. So I've got some pencil marks, but it doesn't bother me because I know my brush is going to get rid of this. Now it's not going to be dead flat colour because it's a water-based product and we're using a water brush. So manipulating it, it's going to be slightly different in different places. But I got a bit of scribble under here, look, because I was rushing. And I've got a lovely flat plane now. Oh, bye. I did say if anybody's on, do and want to put Jean's link in, please, and I'll get off. If anybody wants to put Jean's link in, and I'll get off. I lose track of time when I'm doing this, so apologies. So thank you for watching. That's the end of part 1 with my inktense pencils that will be staying at home because all the colours in there. So I'm just going to shut the book, and that's the end. Thank you for watching.